guys, and welcome to another one of my Shop My Stash videos. I like to do these monthly. This last one that I did lasted a little bit longer than a month, so I'm a little later in May filming this than I typically am. I like to film these sort of middle of the month every single month and change out the makeup in my everyday makeup drawer. I also like to do themes, so I like to have a theme when I'm thinking about what I want to shop my stash for. So this month I was going through my eyeshadow palettes because I was doing eyeshadow palette week, and I ran across a palette that I was like, oh man, I really liked that palette. Like, I remember buying it. I remember really liking it when I tested it. I remember thinking I had very pretty diverse looks for it, but I just haven't reached for it a ton. And so I feel like there is a number of products in my collection that we could call them neglected products. We could call them products that I love that haven't gotten as much attention since I got done reviewing them. And sometimes that happens when I'm buying like a whole bunch of drugstore makeup, for example, to do a drugstore roundup. I'm getting through that testing project, and then as I love a product, it stays in my collection, but I maybe haven't given it as much love as I would want to. And so I feel like that's how I want to focus my theme for this month, is really around this idea of makeup that I loved when I tested, but I haven't given enough love to lately. It's a very convoluted theme. Sometimes it's just cool toned makeup, and that's much easier to figure out as a thumbnail and as a title to a video. It will be interesting to see how in the heck I title this one when I go to edit it. All that to say, we are now looking in the top of my Alex 9 drawer, and this is where I have migrated all of my face palettes. They used to be sitting in a desk drawer over to the side. It was actually the desk drawer that was to the left of my everyday makeup drawer. That is now cream products, and so we will get there eventually, but for the time being, we're gonna start in my face palettes drawer. We'll work our way through Alex 9, and then we'll scoot over there. So in terms of face palettes, most of these I feel like have gotten a lot of love, and they're in my collection because I really do enjoy them. The product that's in this drawer that I kind of think about in this theme is actually this one from LA Girl. I loved this. It was one of my favorite blush products when I tried it. I think it was fall last year, if I remember correctly. This is from LA Girl. This is their Blushed Babe palette, and this is in the, there's a couple versions of this. This is GBL 422 Blushed Babe. I'm not sure what the other one was named. This one has 3 really beautiful blushes. You've got 2 matte blushes, a shimmer, and then you've got a bronzer that I actually found to be fairly neutral. And the formula on these was just so nice as I remember it. Yeah, like that's such a nice blush palette. You're getting a neutral, a pink, and a coral all in one blush palette, and then you also have a bronzer. So I just remember really loving this palette and feeling like, yep, that is going to be a fantastic travel palette for me. And I used it, but not as much as I thought I would. And a lot may have to do with the fact that in terms of travel palettes this last year, this Hourglass one was just like winning all the awards. I was traveling with this one so much, which is crazy because it barely looks like I've touched it. Gosh, and it went on dozens of trips. Anyway, I want to pull this in absolutely this month. All right, that's good for this drawer. Let's move down a drawer. All right, so this is powder, blush, bronzer, and highlighter in here. They're all kind of compacted in here, but what you're looking at is blush along this back section here. Then you've got bronzer in these two and highlighter in these two. So let's see. In terms of blushes, I feel like I want to pull this in. So I have the Charlotte Tilbury, so this is the shade Love Glow. I also have the shade Pillow Talk, and I feel like I use the absolute heck out of this and have continued to reach for it a lot, but I feel like this one's gotten a lot less love from me, even though when I bought it, I absolutely loved it. So let's pull that in. I'm also super tempted to pull in this one from Samantha Marchant Ofra in the Chiclet blush. I don't want to just pull new products to me though. That's a maybe. That's a solid maybe, because then I'm also looking over here at these Persona blushes, and I so enjoyed them, but I don't know them incredibly well yet. You know, like I know these Hourglass blushes incredibly well. I know this Becca blush. I know this Ciate blush, Balm blush, Urban Decay. Like there's ones in here where I'm like, yep, I know that inside and out and back and forth. And I think I want to pull some of these, I guess they're kind of newer to me blushes. I've got that blush palette. So I think what I'm gonna do, Yeah, let's pull it. I just want to. I want to give some more love to the Chic Lit Blush from Ofra and Samantha March. This is going to give me a really pretty glowy nude side and then a gorgeous peach on the other side in a matte formula. I've got the Charlotte Tilbury one in Love Glow, and then I'm going to pull the two from Persona in Georgia and Carmel. Yeah. All right, I feel like I know my highlighters incredibly well. Like, I don't feel like there's any highlighters in here where I don't use them, love them, reach for them a ton. But one that I'm thinking I will pull in this month, and it's pretty old in my collection. This is from Makeup Revolution. This was their Baked Highlighter in Radiant Lights. I remember thinking when I started my declutter that I was going to declutter this one, and then the more I swatched and played with it, the more I was like, oh no, you're staying. I forgot how amazing you were. It's one of my earliest highlighters. It's probably so old that I probably should replace it or see how it performs beyond just swatching. So let's pull that in. Gosh, guys, I feel like I really know these highlighters incredibly well. There's probably not another one that fits the category in here. So maybe let's just pull one that we haven't used in a while-ish. Let's pull, you know what? So I've got a more natural one. Let's pull this. This is from e.l.f. This is the shade White Gold. It's going to be a little bit more intense than the one that I just pulled, and it's going to give me more of a golden undertone versus I would consider to say a more neutral slash champagne undertone. That's definitely more natural, and that one's a lot more beaming. So let's pull these. We'll also have some cream ones we can pull in. All right, so now we're in eyeshadow single drawer. Let's think about ones that I loved when I tested and haven't gotten enough love since then. Oh, well, this seems obvious. This is the little Kaja, let's see, Bento eyeshadow in Rose Water. It has a sparkly sort of champagne shade. It's got a really pretty mauve, and then it's got a deeper berry tone there at the bottom. I've enjoyed it every time I've reached for it, but I feel like it's not gotten a lot of love. So that's going in. Anything else that fits kind of that mold? You know what? I think let's do this. So this is from Laura Mercier, and part of the reason I think this doesn't get enough love is I was a little embarrassed about it because I bought this after I'd gone cruelty-free. I had read online that Laura Mercier was cruelty-free and hadn't checked the date of the article, and it was old. It was like, you know, 2015 or 14, and that was before she had gone into China. So I bought this and I think one other Laura Mercier product, thinking it was cruelty-free, only to have some of you guys go, I thought she wasn't, and I researched and I was like, oh. So this is her Caviar Eye Stick, and this is a shade that was exclusive to Sephora in Rush. It's kind of a really pretty duochrome with a blue glitter shift in it. The other thing that's jumping out at me in this drawer is some ColourPop shadows at the back here. I typically have these hanging on a magnetic board, and then I did some wall repairs in here and I didn't rehang the magnetic board, and I've put the ones that I've kept that made it through my last declutter in here, and I kind of want to look at them and see which ones I feel like have like the least amount of indentation and potentially pull those in. All right, here's what I'm thinking. This is the shade Ritz that I definitely bought because of Mariah Leonard's love for this shade, and it is absolutely stunning. It's one of their, let's see, ultra metallic shadows that has a decent base to it, but then a ton of glitter inside of it. And then two shades that are a little bit sheer that I think are really pretty. Frog. It's a little bit more on the sheer side, but it gives a really pretty effect, and I think I might like this sort of tapped over some other eyeshadows as well. And then this is the shade Sailor, also is a little bit more on the sheer side, has a really interesting tan teal shift to there. It's hard to capture this on film. There you go. Maybe you've got a little bit of that teal flash there. So let's pull these in. Let's see how we feel about them. But I want to make sure I'm pulling in these Super Shocks more frequently. All right, now we're looking at liquid eyeshadows as well as brow products and then eyeshadow primers. I am going to pull in this eyeshadow primer back into my collection. I had been using the e.l.f. Putty Primer, but this one is almost done, so I do want to try and use this up this next month so that I can move on to probably using up this CoverGirl one's probably where I'll go next. So that's coming in. Don't feel like I need to do anything else with brows. I will reach back for this Thrive mascara once I have used up the CoverGirl one. That's the only other open mascara I have. Got some liquid liners in here. I think for the time being, I'm gonna leave them here. Let's see, in terms of liquid shadows, let's bring in these 3 Sydney Grace shadows. I've got, let's see, My Bond, Lap of Luxury, and then Warm Weather. And I think having those in will be a lot of fun. I do feel like I loved these, but I haven't gotten a ton of use lately. Here are all my lipsticks. I made the decision to pull down that little container that was up top that had all my Charlotte Tilbury and high-end lipsticks into here, because every time I opened here, I really just had my drugstore stuff here, and this drawer was largely empty, and so it just felt a little silly to have my lipsticks in 2 different places. So let's think about lipsticks that I bought, loved, and haven't gotten enough use out of yet. This is definitely one. This is Go Lightly from Lisa Eldridge. In fact, in general, I may want to pull a couple Lisa Eldridge lipsticks. This one's her creamy formula, sort of a sheer pinky coral that was designed to kind of mirror what Audrey Hepburn loved as far as shades. So that would be great to pull in. And then I'm kind of tempted to pull in Velvet Fawn as well, because this is a shade I was so freaking excited for. Loved how it looked, and then haven't used a ton since I got done testing it. So that will be great to pull in. I feel like, is it Bond Girl that I didn't? Yes, I think it's Bond Girl. Yeah, Bond Girl from Charlotte Tilbury is probably the shade that I have used not as much as I should, considering how pretty I think that shade actually is. It's a really pretty mid-toned rose that leans a little bit more cool toned. So I know a lot, like I know Pillow Talk, I know Bitch Perfect, I know Tell Laura and Super Cindy. Like I know those shades intrinsically in my brain. Heck, even Birkin Brown, which is probably my newest shade, I feel like I know that incredibly well because I was reaching for it a ton in the fall and winter last year. So it's Bond Girl that I'm always like, what is that shade again? Oh yeah. So let's pull that. Also thinking maybe this. Let's see how this compares to some other things. So this is a CoverGirl. This is one of their demi mattes in the shade 440 Trending. Is that going to be too similar to Fawn? No. It's a little more brown and it's a little deeper. Let's pull that in. Similar to that eyeshadow stick from Laura Mercier, I bought this at the same time. This is the shade Nude Nouveau. There's nothing nude about this. It is definitely a coral. Now it's a little more nude than the brighter coral from Lisa Eldridge, but it's still a coral. It's definitely not nude in my book. But this will be a fun color for spring, and it's one that I feel like I've not given enough love to. All right, now we're in the gloss drawer. Hourglass. This is one that I really liked. It was pink. It was very pretty. This is in the shade Unreal. I liked this formula and I liked how this looked on my lips in terms of a very light wash of baby pink. I kind of feel the same way about this M Cosmetics gloss. This is in Magic Hour and I like this gloss. I always feel like I'm reaching for other ones other than this though that are in this warm family. And maybe it's the drugstore gloss formulas that I've been reaching for more lately, just for some of the videos I've got planned. But I loved this formula and I need some more time with it. I also want to spend some more time with this. So this is from Samantha Ofra March, and this is her Millie gloss that I think is absolutely stunning. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun to put over top of some of the shades that I've picked, so that can go in. Maybe let's use this. I do need to use these up as well. They're from Fresh. Fresh isn't cruelty-free, unfortunately. This is Sugar and Spice. This is one of their tinted lip treatments. It's just a balm that it actually has a decent amount of pigmentation to it. I did love these. I feel like of the 2 shades though, I was reaching for this mauve shade a ton and I used up an absolute ton of it. It's a little, that one's a little sheerer too, maybe that's why. So I used up a ton of this one, but I didn't use this brown one nearly as much. So let's use this, get this in and get some more use out of it before it expires. Eyeshadow palettes. So this is kind of what prompted me to want to film this theme this month, and the palette that jumped out at me was this. I remember really enjoying the Urban Decay Naked Cherry when I reviewed it. I remember thinking that I had options for going more neutral, pulling in some of these lighter tan shades and this gold here, as well as this sort of brown at the end. So I could go neutral, I could go a little bit more peachy in here, or I could go very berry tone. I remember thinking this was a really nice color combo, and I loved that it went truly light to dark, had a nice gradient. Some of her other palettes I feel like have been very mid-toned centric. So I'm very excited to play with this one. I guess I've been thinking about this palette a lot over the last few days as I've been doing these. As I did the eyeshadow palette week, my brain kept going back to this and wanting to play with this. Anything else in here that I feel like, I mean, there's some products that are newer to my collection, but there are also ones that I feel like I know really well. Like I spent a ton of time with the Aether Beauty Amethyst palette when I got it. I spent a ton of time with the Sydney Grace Enduring Love palette. I think I'm gonna set this as a maybe for right now. It's my only Pat McGrath palette. It's the only one I bought before I went cruelty free, and I feel like I want to get some more use out of it because it is obviously very expensive. I loved the packaging. I thought it was so, so pretty, and it has 6 shades in there that are really nice. I think the formula is beautiful. I don't necessarily get as like gaga for this formula as I think a lot of people do. I know it, but I don't like know it. And I think a lot of that has to do with, you know, what I talk about on my channel and the fact that products that have still remained in my collection because I want to get good use out of them but aren't cruelty free, they just don't get as much love on a day-to-day basis from me. So I made the decision to keep this one. I need to get more use out of it. I need to know it a little bit better. So this has a little tub on the top. I'm gonna have to rebuy this palette. It is just shattering on me. I think the shadows have gotten dry, and I think she's reworking her smaller 5-pan palettes again. I think this is older packaging that had a random space in the front here, almost like it would have had a sponge tip applicator or a brush, but it never did. I think I'm gonna have to get rid of this one, but I'm keeping it in here because I wanted to remind myself to repurchase it at some point. So these are my more luxury palettes in here: Marc Jacobs, Charlotte Tilbury, Natasha Denona, and I feel like I need to get more love with this one. This is Samantha March's favorite Natasha Denona mini. This is her mini nude. Samantha, I think, has panned this shade and is close to doing other ones. I remember testing this, liking it, thinking it was fine, and I just haven't used it in way too long. So in it goes. Right now I have put my single eyeshadows down here. These are all of my magnetic pan eyeshadows. So I've got a lot of singles running around right now from some palettes that I've pulled together, and I honestly probably need to condense them back down. And then I've also got my Marc Jacobs Holiday palette, which I love and have talked about quite a bit on my channel. So that one probably is not the pick for this month. And is there anything else in here? These are a lot of my smaller palettes. I feel like I know a lot of these very well. I'm gonna pull this though. This is one that I picked up while I was in Korea several years ago. This is from Clio. I bought this before I went cruelty free, so I don't think Clio is a cruelty free brand, but it is mostly mattes with a couple of satin shadows, and I think it might actually pair really well with some of the other palettes that I've pulled. So I'm gonna pull this in. I feel like I know this formula fairly well, but it's also been pretty neglected in terms of like what I've reached for. Similar reasons, just because it's not a eyeshadow palette that's from a cruelty-free brand, and so it's just not getting talked about a ton. So let's get that in. All right, and now we come to drugstore palettes. I know one. This is from Makeup Revolution. I've not historically loved their eyeshadow palettes. This was their Unconditional Love palette series in Forever Flawless. It has really nice bright pinks and some purples, but it also has some really nice neutrals in here and some really interesting reds and rusty type shades. It's an interesting color story, I guess is what I would say. I always feel like I dip into this and other palettes, which is partly why I think I haven't given this one a ton of love, but I remember feeling like the eyeshadows in here were the best I'd ever had from Makeup Revolution. I haven't cared for most of their eyeshadow formulas. I thought they were okay. They weren't great. And I remember feeling like this one was a much better quality formula. So let's put that again to the test because I haven't used this one a ton. This is a palette I always thought I wanted from ColourPop, and then I bought and I haven't used a ton. So this is the Give It To Me Straight palette. I felt like it had really nice warm neutrals that were not so like orange yellow type neutrals that lend a little bit more towards just the warm browns and more berry type tones. And so I bought this thinking this was going to become a favorite of mine, and then I don't know, I haven't reached for it a ton. So give it to me straight. We need to get to know each other better. And then I think this is gonna be my final eyeshadow pick. This is the It's My Pleasure palette from ColourPop. This is the only 9-pan palette that I bought from them because I felt like it had enough diversity in color. This is before they went so monochromatic where I felt like every palette was just too similar. I remembered this shade, Mr. Sandman, being like one of my favorites. This neutral slash purple teal shifting duochrome, like that's a beautiful shade. There's a number of really interesting duochromes in here. So yeah, let's pull this in. I remember liking it, but it's been a hot minute since we've had any fun together. All right, so I've got this little acrylic container that sits on top of my Alex 9 drawers. This is where my other lipsticks used to sit that I've now just moved down into the drawer. But these are ones that are like longer tubes or longer, chubbier lipsticks that just don't fit down there. So let's kind of go drawer by drawer here. So this bottom drawer I feel like I use quite a bit because I love all the balms and sort of sheer lipsticks that are inside of this collection. One that I feel like I want to get to know a little bit better though is this one from Jouer. It is one of their, what do they call these? They were their Essential Lip Enhancer Shine Balms. This is in the shade Amaryllis, which was just a really nice neutral sort of brown shade. So let's pull this in. Up a drawer, these are some lipstick. This is kind of a hodgepodge. It's kind of high-end lipstick hybrids, some chubby or oddly shaped lipsticks that just don't fit anywhere else. Let's do this. Let's pull this Thrive one in, and this is in the shade Pamela. This is one of their plumping lip serums, and it's pretty pigmented. And I used it quite a bit while I was testing it, and I think I'd like to get some more use out of it. So these are drugstore lip crayons that are a little bit more pigmented and not quite as balmy as the ones down below. I feel like I know these fairly well with the exception this one. Okay, so this is one that I feel like needs some more love and attention. So this is from Ulta Beauty. This is one of their Velvet Matte Lip Crayons in the shade Glacier. It's a really interesting sort of cool toned mauvey pink color. Might look really cool with some of the purpley tones that I've pulled from some of the eyeshadow palettes, so that's cool. All right, up a drawer, these are all of my liquid lipsticks that are more high-end. I feel like I know a lot of these very, very well. There's two though that I probably need to pull in that I don't know quite as well. I know the Ofra liquid lipstick formula is really nice, and I feel like I've played around with a lot of these shades, but I feel like I want to pull these two. This is from Cosmetics, and this is the shade French Nude, and I bought this one thinking it was going to be a really interesting cool toned nude on me. I really like this formula from her, and I just feel like I tested it, I liked it, and I don't know it the way that I know a lot of these other formulas. And then same thing here with the Meet Matte Hues from the Balm. I remember thinking this was a really nice liquid lipstick formula, but I have to be honest, my liquid lipstick love has kind of shifted. I don't mind the moussey textures like from Cosmetics and from the Bare Minerals Gen Nude, as well as the Ofras. This is, I think, more of a traditional liquid lipstick, and I don't know how I'm gonna feel about it. I like the color though. The color is Committed, so that is the color Committed there. Top row, these are liquid lipsticks from drugstore brands. We're gonna pull quite a few matte liquid lips here because I also feel like I probably need to make some decisions on, do I really enjoy all of these? I think I like this formula. I remember this one being a little bit more like the Ofra and the Cosmetics one. This was part of the Disney Designer Collection from the Beauty and the Beast side. This was Beast. This formula was their Luxe Liquid Lip formula, which felt more along that like moussey line, very similar. Versus a true liquidified lipstick that was like very runny and then dried matte. This is from Joa. This was one that I had picked up at drugstore at some point. I think Joa is cruelty-free. I believe it says it's inspired by K-Beauty, so it's not actually K-Beauty. I want to say it's the same people who do Kiss eyelashes, and I want to say that they were cruelty-free. Don't 100% quote me on that. I will put it up here on the screen if I can figure it out. But this was their Infinite Kiss Satin Liquid Lipstick. This was in the shade Smooch. I feel like, now that I'm looking at it, this might be one of those matte formulas that is a little bit more moussey as well. It says it's a satin formula, so it might not dry down either. So let's get that in. And then this is one that I feel like I remember trying and feeling like, oh yeah, okay, if I'm gonna do a liquid lipstick, a sheer matte liquid lipstick is kind of cool. It's from e.l.f. and this is the shade Nude Rose, and I would like to get to know it a little bit better. So there is Nude Rose, and it is definitely more sheer and thin. I kind of like that about it, at least in theory. Hold a bunch of liquid lipsticks, so we're gonna definitely be in liquid lipstick land this month, and I will be curious to report back to you on how I'm feeling. All right, so now we're looking in my cream and liquid blush, bronzer, and highlight drawer. I've got highlighters here, a little bit of my bronzers going here, and then also all of my cheek products down here, so my blushes down here. Let's see, let's start with highlighters. I feel like I know my highlighters pretty well. Okay, two things I can see. One, I want to pull this in. This is from Butter London. This is their highlighting gel. Gosh, what color is this? Chandelier, maybe? Anyway, this highlighter made it through my declutter because it was still going strong. It was a jelly highlighter that hadn't dried out on me. And I remember feeling like it was just such a pretty color that just like melted into my skin in the most beautiful way, but I don't feel like I know it the way that I know so many of the other products in this drawer. So that's getting pulled in. And then I also want to pull this in. So this is from Westman Atelier. This is her highlighting stick, lit up highlight stick. This one has a really interesting sort of gloss to it that also has a little bit of a, I don't know, like a blue shift to it, a slight blue shift. But I have also seen, who was it? Somebody was telling me they use this all over as a primer. Well, that's gonna drive me crazy. I can't remember who it was. I saw someone this last month though that I follow on YouTube talk about how they use this as a primer and they absolutely love it underneath makeup. And I was like, huh, I wanna try that. So I feel like I know this as a highlighter, but I'm curious to get to know it as a primer. Bronzer, honestly, I think I'm gonna pull both of these. I wanna get to know them a little bit better. I feel like I so frequently reach for my Charlotte Tilbury and my Milani one that these two are a little neglected. This is from Undone Beauty, and this is their water bronzer in Baked. It looks insanely dark, but it actually is a very sheer bronzer. To be honest, if you are much darker than me, I just don't even think you should bother. It's so sheer, but I'm very curious to see kind of, I don't know, just get to know it again, see if I want to keep it in my collection. And then the Milk Makeup Stick, I feel like I don't love the color of this one as much as the Milani one. I feel like it reads a little more orange on me. Not awful, but I'd like to get to know it a little better, especially because it's like everybody's favorite bronzer. And I have been watching a few people use this with a sponge, which is something I've not really tried. So picking some up off the top of this with a sponge and blending it out. And I'm kind of curious to try that method with it. In terms of blushes, I'm probably going to start filming every single day. In fact, this might not be the best time to be pulling a lot from this drawer. My intention, and it's going to take me a little while, is to film applying all of these products on camera so that I can give you a blush roundup in terms of cream and liquid blushes. I have very good thoughts on the majority of these products, but I do feel like, in fact, actually, let's not pull any of these. I know that for a good portion of this month, I'm probably going to be reaching into this drawer every single day to film myself getting ready with cream products so that I have footage of it actually going on my cheeks when I do that video. So there's no sense in pulling these into a drawer, knowing that once I get through, I'll do the ones that are in my drawer and then I'm going to reach for the next thing in here. So that's fine. Let's just skip the rest of what's in here and let's move on to foundations. All right, now we're looking at my foundation drawer. I think I'm spotting three that I feel like I need to just like give a little bit more love and attention to. Oh, no, 4. Let's pull these in first. So this is the Fenty Hydrating Foundation. I am in the shade 150. I remember feeling like this one wasn't incredibly hydrating, but it was a very nice natural finish foundation, and I liked it quite a bit when I first got it. I don't feel like I've reached for it a ton since though, so I'd like to play around a bit more with it. And then I'd like to get to know this Juvia's Place Stick Concealer Foundation a little bit more. This is in the shade Nicaragua. This I remember feeling was just like a natural finish stick foundation. Another one is from Undone Beauty, and I need to decide if I like this enough to keep it, because Undone Beauty has reformulated their Unfoundation Glow Tint, and you can find them now in store at a lot of Targets. My Target actually has the new formulation in there, so I need to decide if I really love this and I really want to keep it on its own, or if I'm just kind of like apathetic about it and I'd rather have the current formulation so I can articulate about a product that's actually available on the marketplace. So let's get that in here. And then I also think I'm going to pull in my Thrive Buildable Blur Foundation. I want to really spend some more time with this one. I really like it. It's newer to my collection, but I've been, for the last month, really just reaching for the things that were in my everyday makeup drawer, and then the month before that I was really heavily using the things that were in my project pan, so this makes some sense to pull in also. A lot of these concealers I know pretty well, but there's 2 that I probably have used the least in the last 6 months, and I like to kind of play with them, and so these are one's from Milani, their Conceal and Perfect Longwear Concealer. I am in the shade 105 Ivory Rose, and then I also have the Revolution Conceal and Define. I remember liking the Conceal and Define version more than the Conceal and Hydrate version. So these will be my 2 selections for concealer. All right, let's talk primer first. Let's do this. This is Dr. Brandt. This is his Luminizer Primer. I didn't buy this one. I think this was in one of the last boxy charms I've gotten. Let's see if I love this enough to keep it after playing with it, because I remember it being nice, but I don't know as if it's any nicer than any of the other glowy ones I've got down there. So we should probably make a decision on if I want to keep it. I'm gonna pop this into, this is from Origins. This is their Pore Perfecting Cooling Primer. It's one of those like foaming ones that was so strange that I bought it before I went cruelty free. What is that weirdness? Like, do I still want this? Do I like this? I mean, it's cool and it's cooling. I don't know. Let's pull those 2 in. Powders. Definitely know which direction I'm going here. I've been wanting to play with this for the last several weeks. I keep thinking about it. This is the Lift and Illuminate Translucent Finishing Powder. I loved it when I tested it. I keep watching more and more people fall in love with it, and I'm just ready to dive into it. All over my face, under my eyes, the whole shebang. So that will be my powder pick. And I think that's it. The only other drawer I have here is setting sprays, but I really have the ones that I'm trying to use up, so I'm not necessarily gonna pull anything from down here. Let's go ahead and get the drawer loaded up. All right, so here is how the drawer is looking. I did end up putting that Scandinavia setting spray back in the back here, and I am half tempted. Oh, let's see. I also had put this in here. I think I'm gonna hold and put this back because as much as I wanna use it up, I really would like to get through my MAC Fix Plus, which is sitting as part of my project pan. All right, so I decided to end up keeping my blush bronzer and highlight here. This is where I'd had it during my last Shop My Stash when I'd done sort of what would I buy from scratch. And I like it. Like, I feel like that's helps me not feel like I'm on top of everything here. It does mean typically I put some of these like liquid eyeshadow type products in here. That's what I've done historically, but I feel like I can make room for them down here. I've just kind of had to stack some of the eyeshadow palettes up. This feels very easy and open though in terms of grabbing different foundations, and then my powder is just within easy reach. And as per usual, I've pulled way too many lip products, so yay me. But I am excited to play around with what is down there. So that wraps us up for this month's Shop My Stash. I will come back in probably a month's time and report out to you guys on kind of how this went, my thoughts on all of these products. If there's some products that I kind of relearn or get to know and I'm not loving at the end of next month, then we will definitely be doing a little decluttering, as I often do out of this drawer. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's Shop My Stash. Look forward to chatting with you down in the comments. Bye.